This video takes a look at Module 2, Lesson 15, Multiplication and Division of Rational Numbers. So today you guys are going to extend the rules for multiplying and dividing integers to multiplying and dividing rational numbers. You have this when you are able to correctly solve real-world mathematical problems involving multiplication and division of rational numbers. And our standard is 7 NSA2. Apply and extend previous understandings in multiplication and division and of fractions to multiply and divide rational numbers. For exercise 1 here, A, B, C, and we'll come back and do D together, but if you want to attempt D, you can. But what I want you to do is create a real-world problem that involves integer multiplication. Now remember, integers are whole numbers, their opposites, and 0. For part B, you're going to change the word problem by just replacing the integer, both of the integers with non-integer rational numbers, so fractions or decimals, and you will write the new equation. For part C, you're just answering the question that's here. Was the process used to solve the second problem, which is part B, different than the process of solving for the first, and explain. And then D, like I said, we'll come back and we'll develop these rules together. When you are done with A, B, and C, come back and check the video before heading forward. Now, obviously for A and B, our answers should look a little bit different because you created your own problem. I'm just going to provide a type of problem that I did. Both times I went to the fair, I borrowed $3 from my older brother. Okay? So this equation would be negative 3 times 2, which equals negative 6, right? You borrowed $3, that's a negative value, and you did it both times I went to the fair. That's 2 times. Now for B, I'm going to change these integers to rational numbers. So both times I went to the fair, I borrowed $3.50 from my older brother. So now we have negative 350 times 2, which is negative $7. Now, was the process used to solve the second problem different from the first one? And in fact, this answer is no. What I notice is I still have one negative and one positive, which ended up giving me a negative product, right? And then all I do is I'm just multiplying those two factors to get a product. So it seems like the process is not different at all. So no, the process was the same. Both times I had a positive number multiplied by a negative number, so the product was negative. Process multiplication is represented as repeated addition for both problems, right? So for this first one, basically you have negative 3 plus negative 3, which gets the negative 6. And here you have negative 350 plus negative 350 because of this times 2, which gets you negative 7. So the process was the same no matter what. So that leads us down here for the rules for multiplying rational numbers. And they are the same for multiplying integers. So this is a good chance to just get a reminder. You are just going to start by multiply the numbers as normal. Okay? Then, in order to determine the signs, if the two numbers, meaning the factors, have the same sign, the product, or the answer, product, is positive. I'm going to try to make sure that can fit for you guys. All right. So you're going to start by just multiplying the numbers as normal, which the numbers meaning the factors. If the two numbers or factors have the same sign, the answer or the product is positive. And if the two numbers, factors, have opposite or different signs, the answer product is negative. All right, so the rules for multiplying rational numbers is the exact same as the rules that we reviewed when we were multiplying integers. You multiply the same, and then if the two numbers are have the same sign, the product is positive. If the two numbers have different signs, the answer is negative. So that leads us forward to exercise 2. What I want you to do is read through exercise 2A, come up with an answer, and then check back and look at the video because we're going to go over the answer for A and then come up for rules for dividing rational numbers. For exercise 2, you should have got negative $220.08. Spending money is a negative value, and they spent that much in a year. There are 12 months in a year, and because we want their monthly change, or how much it's changing each month, you would divide the yearly amount by 12. So that one took a little bit of background knowledge to know how many months are in a year, because it didn't give you that 12. It told you it once monthly over the course of a year, so that's a value of 12. When you divide, and you can see the long division over here, so take a look at this, you get 220.075. Now, it is negative 220.08 because money goes at 2 decimal points, and this 5 rounds up. It rounds the 7 up, it gives it a shove. Keep in mind, anytime you are dealing with money, you should round to the hundredths place, the second decimal point. Now, the rules for dividing rational numbers are the same as dividing integers, meaning we are first going to divide like normal, okay? Whether that's long division or it's just kind of basic division. And then if the two numbers, meaning the dividend and divisor, have the same sign, the answer, which is called the quotient, is positive. Okay? Now down here, if the two numbers, the dividend and divisor, and you can probably guess where this is going, have opposite or different signs, the answer, meaning the quotient, is negative. These rules are the same rules as multiplication. So if we go back and look at multiplication here, you multiply like normal. If the two numbers have the same sign, the product's positive. If the two numbers have opposite or different signs, the answer is negative. If I look here, it looks like I divide like normal. And once again, if the two numbers are the same sign, the answer is positive. And if the two numbers have different signs, the answer is negative. So the rules for multiplication and division of rational numbers are basically the same. Just like the rules for multiplying and dividing integers are basically the same. With that said, and keep that in mind, I want you to go through and answer exercise 3. Now, exercise 3 has a lot of parts. I think it goes all the way up to F before the problem set. So this should take you some time. I would say it should probably take you 15 to 20 minutes or so. So pause the video, go through each step, show commitment to quality, and do your absolute best. When you are done all the way through part F, then you can come back and consult the video to make sure you did it correctly before you take a look at the problem set. Exercise 3 is really an example of a terrific question where they just give you this information, right, in this table, and hopefully you started by filling out these totals. If there are empty spaces in a table, it's probably always a good start to fill them out. If you have 2 plants here that are $4.25 each, this is $8.50. Here you got 5 plants that are $2.25 each. $2.25 times 5 is $11.25. but where they just give you information and then you can ask a ton of questions based off this. So exercise 3 is really shooting towards that goal of using those multiplication and division rules for rational numbers. So this is a good self-check. Hopefully you put in the 15 or 20 minutes to go through this, because I'm going to show you the answers now. For A, you should have got a numerical answer of negative 850. You take that 425 and multiply it by 2, which is what filled in this blank in the table, the 850. And because she's paying a check, she's paying something, it is a negative 850. Now, the explanation just kind of means write it in a sentence, like what does this mean? It means Tamara Jones will need to deduct 850 from her checking account balance, or she will spend 850 from her checking account. Now, B deals with Mr. Clark. Now, if I go back to my table, Mr. Clark's has to end up paying $11.25 for these geraniums. All right. So if I go back, that's how I got that $11.25. Now he pays with a $20 bill. 20 minus the $11.25 is $8.75. So that means that the numerical answer is a negative $8.75. Because Jeremy collects too much money, he owes Mr. Clark $8.75. So he needs to make an adjustment of negative $8.75. Because the question is asking what number will represent the change that must be made to the money Jeremy collects. That is why it is a negative value. It all comes down to what the question is asking. It's asking about Jeremy. It's not asking about the change Mr. Clark will collect. It's asking how much will this number, this change amount, affect Jeremy. He would owe $8.75. That's a negative $8.75. Now C deals with Jeremy's sister Susie paying for the order. So if I go back here, we have Jeremy's sister. She has to pay $250 for this violet. Now, if I scroll down again, she has 5 weeks to repay it. So we're taking that $250 and dividing it by 5 to find the weekly change, and it is 50 cents. That means Susie, and it's a negative 50 cents, because Susie is paying this, she's going to lose 50 cents of her allowance each week. All right, D, the original order was $15 because you had the $3.75 times 4. Now, the new order is $3.75 times 3 plus the $2.25. And you get all that information from the table. You can look back at the table to see where those numbers came from. Now, that ends up getting a total of $13.50. Now, because their original order was $15 and now the new order is $13.50, I subtracted to find the change. And the change in the amount is $1.50. So that means Jeremy's grandparents will get $1.50 back since the change in their order made is cheaper. I should say is cheaper. I got my answer by first calculating the total cost of the original order, then the cost of the new order, and subtract to determine the difference, excuse me. So they will get $1.50 back. Now, moving through E. E is a straightforward kind of problem here. You have $14.40. You want to divide this evenly amongst 3 people. You get $4.80. So the average cash donation will be $4.80 per person. Now for F, you should have gotten an answer of about $12.27. You can see the long division over here. But you have $270 you want to divide evenly amongst 22 people. You have to do long division, okay? If it asks average amount, almost always you're going to do long division or division to find out the average per person. So that was exercise 3A through F, a very strong problem. This really tests your ability to understand negatives, rational numbers, and multiplication and division. So if we go back to our original goal here, remember, our goal is to be able to correctly solve real-world mathematical problems involving multiplication and division of rational numbers. So if you were able to handle exercise 3, you're on a pretty good path before we even look at the problem set. Now, the lesson summary, the rules for multiplying, the rules that apply for multiplying and dividing integers extend and also apply to rational numbers. They are not different, they are the same. Keep in mind, if you have two negatives multiplied or divided together, your answer ends up being positive, and if the signs are different, your answer ends up being negative. All right, this problem set, you got 8 questions here. This is another opportunity to meet that goal of being able to multiply and divide rational numbers in real-world situations. When you are done with 1 through 8, which should take you, let's see, approximately 10, maybe 15 minutes. When you are done with those, and you've tried them independently to your best ability, come back and check the video, and that will wrap up this lesson on the multiplication and division of rational numbers. We're going to wrap up this lesson with our problem set. For number 1, you should have got a negative $3.75, which means that Benjamin owed Clyde $3.75. For 2, you should have got 44 and a half or 44 and 5/10, meaning Monica's recorder will have 44.5% of its total memory free. Number 3 through really all the rest of them, your answers may vary. It's asking you for 3 to 5 to find at least 2 possible sets of values that will work. So you have to fill in the blanks that will work. So obviously your answers may be different, but for 3, possible solutions can be 10 and 4 or negative 10 and negative 4. Now the 2 numbers you have must be factors of 40, and they must both have the same sign. So 20 and 2 would work, and then negative 20 and negative 2 would work. Any numbers that 8 and 5, and then negative 8 and negative 5, would work as well. But the 2 numbers you put in the blanks for 3 should multiply to get 40, and they should be the same sign. For number 4, once again, your answer may be different. Negative 50 and 2 or 25 and negative 4 are possibilities. But the 2 numbers you have must be factors of negative 100, and they must be different signs. So 50 and negative 2 would work. Negative 25 and positive 4 would work. 20 and negative 5, or negative 5 and a positive 20 would work. But your 2 numbers you should have put in this blank should have opposite signs, and when you multiply them, they should have gotten a negative 100. 5, your answer once again may vary. I did negative 3 and a quarter and a half and negative 1.5. The 2 numbers should be factors of negative 3/4 and should have opposite signs. So just make sure whatever numbers you put in there fit that billing. Because the product is negative, your 2 numbers should for sure have different signs. Numbers 6 through 8 are asking you to create word problems. So once again, your answer may be and should be different from mine. For 6, you can see the example here. Stacy borrowed a quarter from her mother every time she went to the grocery store so she could buy a gumball for the gumball machine. Over the summer, Stacy went to the grocery store 8 times. What rational number represents the dollar amount change in her mother's money due to the purchase of gumballs? So you have those 8 visits of 25 cents each time. The answer is negative 2, meaning her mom ended up spending $2 for these gumballs for her daughter. 7, there was a loss of $6 on an investment over 1 1/3 months. Based on this, what was the investment's average dollar amount change per month? Negative 6 divided by 1 1/3 is negative 450. Because they're different signs, your quotient will end up being negative. And really, if I'm dividing this fraction, this mixed number, I'm switching this to an improper fraction and then dividing. Okay? Now, 8, I discarded exactly half of my card point total in the integer game. That takes account of this negative a half. My card point total was 12. What rational number represents the change? So I decreased my hand by 6. So that is where the negative 6 comes from. Just keep in mind, 3 through 8, your answer should, in fact, probably be different. Definitely 6 through 8. But just make sure you have these correct. Make sure you are confident in these. So if you see them again later and you're asked to do these independently, you are able to answer the questions correctly. That is it for this lesson on multiplying and dividing rational numbers.